Happy Veterans Day, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Alex Bell, and this is To The Point. And tonight, we are sharing the story of a group that is often forgotten. Known as the Harlem Hellfighters, they were an African-American infantry unit that fought during World War I and spent more time in combat than any other American unit. And despite their courage, sacrifice, and dedication to their country, they returned to the U.S. to face racism and segregation from their fellow countrymen. Now an Elk Grove resident and granddaughter of one of those soldiers is keeping their story alive.
This is our history. This needs to be known.
A few years ago, Gina McVeigh of Elk Grove discovered a piece of world history in her family's past. She says it started with a chance encounter at a car dealership.
There was a gentleman in military uniform. So as we're sitting there, I told him, "Thank you for your service." And I said, "My grandfather fought in World War I. He goes, "He did?" I said, "Yeah, he won a medal." And he goes, "What kind of medal?" I said, "A French medal?" He said, "The Croix de Guerre?" I said, "Yeah, I think that's it." He goes, "Do you know what you have?" I'm like, "A medal?" He goes, "No, you have history."
The Croix de Guerre, a medal recognizing exceptional bravery, pinned on her grandfather Lawrence Leslie McVeigh by France.
He was drafted, so he was out of Harlem, New York, and that happened to be the regiment that he was in.
At the time of the First World War, black men were allowed to serve in the United States Army, but only in segregated units. Lawrence McVeigh joined Harlem's 369th Infantry, a regiment that would come to be known by many names.
They called themselves the Black Rattlers. The French called them the Men of Bronze.
But there was one that stuck.
The Germans were the ones who called them the Harlem Hellfighters because they were scared of them.
So why were these Harlem Hellfighters serving under the French military?
France had been in World War I for a while before the United States.
The United States joined the war in 1917. By that point, France was devastated, and they asked U.S. General John Pershing for help.
Pershing said, "Yeah, you know what, I'll send you the colored soldiers."
In a memo titled Secret Information Concerning Black American Troops, signed by a U.S. colonel serving under Pershing, instructions were given to the French military on how black soldiers were expected to be treated. It called black soldiers inferior to whites and said they lacked civil and professional conscience.
Don't, acknowledge them or, pat them on the back. Don't eat with them and, mingle with them.
The French military was not segregated like the U.S. Despite the warnings in the secret information, African-American soldiers were trained with and fought side by side with their French counterparts. And in the case of Lawrence McVeigh and other Hellfighters, they were certainly commended.
They were given one of the highest medals of honor from France.
The Smithsonian says the Harlem Hellfighters fought the longest and lost the most men of any American unit. They spent 191 days on the front lines and lost 1,400 men. After the war, they were all awarded the Croix de Guerre, but McVeigh won his medal earlier in the war.
My grandfather received his Croix de Guerre because he led his troops against a nest of German machine gun fighters until he was wounded.
McVeigh and the Hellfighters returned home decorated in honors from France, but their own country still refused to treat them as equals.
When they returned back from the war, actually getting off the ship, the white soldiers who met them were told, "Do not acknowledge them. Don't do anything. Just let them walk off the boat."
Black soldiers returned to the same segregation and discrimination as before the war. But for the Harlem Hellfighters, a ray of light. A victory parade in their hometown of New York City.
And you just see people dressed to the nines celebrating them. And that was the only celebration that they received.
Somewhere in this massive crowd was Lawrence McVeigh, who would hold on to his Croix de Guerre for years, eventually passing it down to his family along with other memorabilia.
So this is a picture of my grandfather that my grandmother had written "Hero" on. And this was actually a postcard that he had sent to his sister, and they kept.
When Gina realized the importance of what her grandfather left behind, she contacted the 369th Armory in Harlem, but they didn't have the capacity to take everything that the McVeighs had saved.
So then I said, "Smithsonian. I'm going to send it to Smithsonian."
At the time, the Smithsonian was readying their National Museum of African American History and Culture. Gina happily gave them everything she had, her grandfather's pictures, uniform, rifle, and the Croix de Guerre. They're all displayed there today, a monument to his life. What does it mean for you to see him honored in that way?
I think because he received no honor or acknowledgement while he lived, this is emotional for me, this part. It's just to let everyone know, especially in the environment we're in now, that we are important. We have fought for a country that didn't fight for us. We believed in you when you didn't believe for us. So to me, it's my way of saying thank you.
Beautiful story that will now forever be history. All right, when we come back, the wait for California's election results continues, and local officials say it may be time to change our expectations.
And before we go, this is Dwight Service. This photo was sent in by his son, Gordon. He served in World War II and then worked at McClellan Air Force Base. We thank you for your service.
All right, 3 days after Election Day, and we are still getting lots of questions about the process. A viewer wrote in and asked what seems to be our most frequently asked question. They said in part, why is it taking so long for all the votes to come in, and why isn't the Board of Elections and the governor not embarrassed about this? Now, California is taking particularly long to get votes counted. In fact, our state has the most outstanding races not called. The simple answer is the process has changed. California has made it incredibly easy to vote, and that comes with a lot of ballots coming in at the last minute. So Sacramento County estimates that they still have to count another 250,000 votes. And the county spokesperson says that it's time to change our mindset because Election Day is now more like election month.
We have to take several extra steps in order to verify the eligibility of our vote by mail ballots before we can actually count them. And that does take longer, but really it just means that more people have the opportunity to have their voice heard.
And it's important to remember that some mail-in ballots may have just gotten delivered to the elections office, and ballots are accepted as long as they're postmarked by Election Day. So the count will likely continue for weeks. And the county is releasing new results every Tuesday and Friday evening and has until December 8th to certify the election.
We like to honor another veteran tonight. This is Stephen Ramirez and his wife, Lynn. Stephen served at Beale Air Force Base. We thank you for your service, and we'll be right back.
As we honor those who served on this Veterans Day, it's important to remember the ones who are experiencing homelessness. Now, last week, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development released some hopeful news. Homelessness among veterans has dropped 11% in the last 2 years. But still, there are more than 33,000 veterans without permanent housing across the nation. And it's estimated about a third of them live right here in California. Becca Habegger spoke with one right here in Sacramento County.
I was in from February of 57 to February of 61. Third class boatswain mate.
For the past 2 months, 85-year-old U.S. Navy veteran John Bennett has been living here at Mather Veterans Village in Rancho Cordova after his sister died of cancer and family wanted to sell her North Sacramento house.
I was living in my sister's house. I lived there for about almost 20 years. And I got evicted because they put the house up for sale. So that means I had to get out quick, you know. And I wound up here. My son hooked me up to this because he was in the Marines.
Mather Veterans Village is a mix of permanent supportive housing and transitional housing, and Bennett is in the latter.
Until you can find you a permanent apartment. So this is what it is, you know.
He says he's on a waiting list for permanent housing.
I hope before Christmas, you know, tell me you can move, you know. That'll be the best thing ever happened.
The last survey of Sacramento County's homeless population, done back in January, shows 625 veterans are experiencing homelessness on any given night. That's a 6% decrease from the last count done in 2019. I asked Bennett whether he thinks veterans should be prioritized for housing.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yes, indeed. They need a spot, you know, just like everybody else do.
And there were Veterans Day celebrations all across Northern California today. ABC 10 stopped by the Vietnam War Memorial at Capitol Park to ask veterans what they had on their minds. Here's what they had to say.
What's coming to mind?
People that I served with that didn't come back alive.
We've lost friends, and that's why we're here today, to just pay honor to them and just remember them. There are a lot of people that we went to high school with that are on that wall. You know, it was something that I did, and at that time it was pretty challenging, and you got to live with it. There's no doubt about it. But I served my country. I'm proud of it. Like I say, I didn't have much of a choice. I was drafted, but it turned out to be one of the great things in my life. I got my education because of the GI Bill, and I was able to buy a house. Of course, it had its problems too. It was tough dealing with for a long time, and still is, but that's the price you pay.
All right, we're going to switch gears for just a moment. Who would have guessed that the highly coveted Sriracha sauce is made right here in our own backyard? This week, John Bartel is hitting the back roads to see how Northern California peppers became the special sauce.
I love Sriracha, more specifically, rooster sauce Sriracha. I put it on just about everything. Corn dogs, burritos, and even my salad. I'd drink this stuff if I could. So when I heard that my favorite condiment was made right here in California, I had to see how it was done. Before the sauce is filled inside the iconic green-topped bottle, the process starts here in a pepper field in Woodland, California.
Peppers are grown all over the state of California. We just found a little niche here in Northern California in this Woodland area. They seem to do very well.
Sometime around the end of March or early April, farmer Tom Muller begins the planting process. It's a delicate process where farm implements and human hands work together to get the roots of the plants close enough to the underground drip irrigation system so they can sip enough water to produce ripe, plump peppers. It is a tough task, though. Tom grows about 450 acres of Sriracha peppers, and the elements are often against him.
Every year is different. Every year you do this, you look at what you did the year before, how you can make it better, but it really all comes down to how the weather's going to treat you.
It takes about 125 days for the fruit to grow, and yes, a pepper is a fruit, and when it turns bright red, it's harvest time. Really vibrant and red here.
Yeah.
What kind of peppers are these?
I don't want to say. Oh. They're a jalapeno.
These peppers are a special breed with tough skin, and they grow just at the right height for machinery to pick them. Before the machines,
We were picking with 80 to 100 people, and now I'm doing it with 9.
Speed is the name of the game. These peppers are headed to Hoi Fong Foods, and they require super fresh peppers for their sauce. And these specially designed harvesters sort, pack, and pick the peppers in a matter of minutes.
They're put on a truck and hauled to Irwindale. They're probably in the sauce within 8 hours of me picking them.
That's right, 8 hours. The Sriracha peppers may be grown in Northern California, but the famous Sriracha rooster sauce is made at the Hoi Fong Foods Southern California facility in Irwindale.
Thank you. Total square footage of this facility is 650,000 square feet big.
Andrea Castillo is a tour guide at Hoi Fong Foods, and August through November is a pretty busy time for her and everyone at the Sriracha factory.
You can really smell that smell in here. Does everyone get used to it?
A lot of people adapt to it.
Once the peppers reach the factory, they're washed, ground up, and put into these 55-gallon barrels.
It's not the edible sauce yet, it's just the base?
It's just the base.
Just a little background on Sriracha. It's a sauce that originated in Thailand, and many different versions are made by many different companies. David Tran is the owner of Hoi Fong Foods, and he came up with the rooster sauce Sriracha recipe.
Our chilies aren't roasted and not boiled. It's all raw material, so it's a faster process.
David Tran has a pretty amazing backstory. After fleeing his home during the Vietnam War, he ended up on a cargo ship.
David did immigrate from Vietnam to Hong Kong on a freighter boat named Hoi Fong. So it meant a lot to him, so that's why he decided to name his company Hoi Fong Foods.
Eventually, David made it to the United States, first in Boston, then to Los Angeles, where he bought peppers from the field to grind up and then mix in his secret recipe of spices to sell in Chinatown.
When he first started,
It was all hands-on.
Hoi Fong Foods has never done any formal advertising. Word of the spicy sauce is spread by mouth, and today all 3 of his sauces are produced in-house, including the iconic bottles.
Every production line can produce between 18,000 bottles an hour.
18,000?
Yes.
That clear bottle with the green top is not an accident. It symbolizes red chili peppers and the green stem. And that famous rooster logo, well, it has a meaning too.
David was born the year of the rooster. David also is Chinese, Vietnamese as well too.
Sriracha is made to order, and that helps keep it fresh. And that freshness is what people like. But the popularity of the sauce has created sort of a good problem in the pepper fields.
People are eating this stuff like crazy, right? And you have to have more growers to do this, and I think that's what the plan is, to get more peppers.
From Hoi Fong Foods Incorporated in Irwindale, I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the back roads.
Now everyone knows how John eats in the break room, if you didn't know. All right, so you can find more Backroad stories on abc10.com/backroads. We can also send a map straight to your phone to help you plan your next road trip adventure. Just text Backroads to 916-321-3310. All right, let's get a quick check of our forecast here. Still seeing those cooler temperatures. A quick check of our Gilmore backyard. Sacramento seeing 49 degrees right now. Modesto seeing 51, Marysville 50, Tahoe 28. Here's a quick check of your 10-day forecast.
Tonight, we are honoring U.S. Navy veteran Ruben Cabral, who was part of the ABC 10 extended family. Ruben, we thank you for your service.
The To The Point team comes from a very long line of veterans. So to close out tonight's show, we wanted to take a moment to honor them. Thank you to all the men and women who have served our country.
This is my grandpa, Miles Clinton Bristol. He served in the U.S. Navy at the tail end of the Korean War. He always said, "I'm no hero. The guys who served in World War II, those are the real heroes, but my grandpa is a hero to me."
Today I'm honoring my grandfather, Major General Jorge Arzola. He taught me how to be a good person. He grew up dirt poor in Puerto Rico and worked his way up to a 2-star general in the Army, and he led with compassion and decency.
Today I'm honoring my Tío Albert, who served in the Marine Corps. The one thing I remember the most about him is just his funny nature, his creativity. He was always down to earth and would always be open to hearing me talk, especially when I was going through what I go through mentally. He was there to kind of keep me down to earth.
Today I'm honoring my grandfather, Forrest Messer. He was 101st Airborne Ranger. So that should tell you everything. He's a crazy guy. He jumped out of planes. Vietnam vet through and through. And recently, we buried him alongside many other heroes at Arlington National Cemetery.
The story my mom always tells is that they went to the bakery every morning and he'd get a loaf of bread for them and a loaf of bread for the homeless man outside.
Bobby gave me so many things. He gave me my quirky sense of humor. He gave me a love for songs.
He brought me into more spirituality, especially being Native American and keeping me down with that.
One thing that he always told us as kids growing up was, if you don't make yourself happy, it's your own fault. And my grandpa was not the life of the party. He was the entire party. He always made everybody laugh with everything.
He always told me that there was pride in any job, no matter what it was, even if it was flipping burgers, as long as you were making a living and had pride in it.
He died a few years ago, and I really miss him.
And I can't thank him enough for what he did for our country and for our family.